Hello, I am Glenn Dyer, and you are watching a Dyer-Situation. I'm gonna have to make this first bit a little bit quick because the battery's kind of low. So, today I am going to see Jack the Giant Slayer, I'm not really sure what to expect. I'm hoping they won't take it too seriously, because that's kind of what made Hansel and Gretel so great to me. They didn't take it seriously, you know, they just knew, yeah, this is kind of a silly idea, so they just went with it. That's kind of what I like. So I hope they won't take this idea too seriously, because Jack the Giant Slayer sounds kind of stupid. But if they take it seriously, basically it'll be more stupid. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm so glad it's March. There's actually movies now. I hate February. February is like the worst month of the year for movies and games apparently. Um, so so yeah, there's actually movies. Like we got our Jacks the Giant Slayers, we got our Oz's the Great and Powerful, we got the Croods later on, you know. Maybe they're not necessarily good, but there's movies out there. They have returned to us. So yeah. Um, well, I'm going to see you after this giant break. And I'm back, and, well, that sucked. But let me explain. Okay, so, what I forgot to realize, what I forgot, is that, this movie happens to star the same guy who played the zombie in Warm Bodies. Um, I don't really like his acting, personally. You know, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but come on. Like, I look at him, and this is his natural expression. I'm acting. You know, like that's it. Like he's always like whenever you see a still shot of him, like 90% of the still shots of his face are him doing this, and with that exact kind of dazed, confused look. So, so yeah. Um, however, this movie is better than Warm Bodies. I'm going to admit that it is better than Warm Bodies because at least I wasn't bored out of my mind the entire time. Okay. However, it is not even close to being as good as Hansel and Gretel. Because this is a bad movie, but not that bad a one. Just kind of bad. So let's see here. So, well, let's see here. Where do I begin with this? There's a lot to say. Well, for one thing, everyone in this movie is an idiot. All the characters, they're idiots. Not just the giants. You know, you kind of expect them to be idiots. They're like big brutish guys, but no. Most characters are idiots. For instance, the king, like he's marrying off his daughter, right? And the daughter's doing the whole Princess Jasmine thing, like I want to leave the castle and go on adventure, or whatever. Or you could say it's the brave chicks thing, and then I'll punch you. But, anyway, yeah, so he's trying to marry off his daughter to what I guess is his advisor, like the chief advisor. And there's a great line in the movie, like later he said, well, because like since the guy is going to marry his daughter, right? He will become king at some point, right? Because that's how it works, I guess, in this world. But like later on, like this guy like betrays him, obviously, because you know since she's being forced to marry him, he has to be an evil guy. But like he betrays them later, and he's like, to think I would have trusted him with the kingdom, and worse yet, you. I'm like, yeah, no shit, that was a pretty bad idea, considering that the entire time he was twirling his mustache at him, you know. What do you expect? Uh, like, the entire movie had, like, a face on like this, like, like, you know, and he had a sidekick that was even worse. He was like, like, they just look like freaking Snidely Whiplash, both of them. Especially his sidekick. I was like, you trust this guy to advise you? Oh man, I wouldn't trust him to give me a manicure. Jesus, he is hilariously evil looking, and yet And, you know, of course he does betray him. Apparently there's this magical crown that controls the giants or something, and he tries to use that to, you guessed it, take over the world. Which is kind of pointless when you think about it. I mean, he's advisor to the king, and he will soon be king, unless he does something evil. Um, and, you know, if he's king, then he rules over this, honestly, quite nice-looking piece of land. Like, it looks like freaking Hobbiton. There's, like, all these trees and plains of grass. It's, like, freaking gorgeous. So he'll rule over that, but no, he wants to rule over the world. And I do mean the world, because, like, when he's up to the giant, he's, like, giving a speech like, first we will conquer this kingdom, and then we will go and conquer its neighbors, and then we will see if that Viking legend is true, and travel across the seas. I guess they felt they need to include the audience, because for the American audience, they'll be like, oh wow, they're going across the sea, that's where we will live in several hundred years. I don't know, it seemed incredibly forced. It was hilarious that way. Oh man. What else? What else? There's a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, the title of Jack the Giant Slayer is misleading, okay? Because he slays a grand total of one giant. I'm not exaggerating. He slays, throughout the entire movie, one giant. One. Oh, technically he kills two others. And I guess that's what, like, people will argue with me, like, oh, he killed these two. And I say to that, that was mostly by pure dumb luck, okay? He did, like, for instance, this might be a bit of a spoiler, so cut ahead to this time if you don't want to hear it. But like, basically he's just like, okay, we need to get rid of this giant, so he gets like this comb of bees and put like the giant's sleeping by this thing, so he needs to kill it. He needs to kill it so he can get by it. So the giant's sleeping there. He gets the bees, he puts it inside the helmet, and you know the giant does what you expect. It like runs around like, holy crap, bees, and you know, so I'm like, well, how would that kill it exactly? And then it falls off the side of a cliff. Well, that was lucky. I mean, there was nothing guaranteeing that that thing would fall off the cliff. In fact, it was pretty damn strange that it did manage to fall off the cliff. It was pretty far from the dang cliff. And no, it just fell off of it and died. There you go. So yeah, that... And, boy. What else? There's stuff. There's a lot of stuff in this. Yeah. Hmm. Oh yeah, apparently this is supposed to take place in the real world, because later they show the, like, people of the future, like our time in normal London and stuff. And yeah, I'm probably mumbling a little bit now. Okay. So, for the Giants, admittedly the special effect for them, though, was CGI. The, the good thing about it, I think they only used that when they really did have to. I didn't notice, like, it being used overly. Like, it didn't seem like it was being used a lot, but of course they had to use it for the Giants, like, to make them look that bad. But the thing is, I wish they were a little bit more imaginative on the design for them. Like, say for Hansel and Gretel witch hunters, right? Um, at one point, there's this like witch meeting, and they have all these like really imaginative looking witches. Like there's ones that are like all slimy and covered in scales and stuff, and there's one that looks like it's from The Exorcist, and you know there's all these little like imaginative looking witches. But in this, about the most imaginative they get, like most of them look basically the same, but one of them has two heads, like randomly has two heads, and it doesn't really mean anything because the other head's kind of a retard, and doesn't do anything. Just kind of sits there being a second head. So I wish they were more imaginative on the design of these giants, you know. Also, this movie's rated PG-13. It would have definitely benefited from being rated R. Like if it had, because it seemed like it was being held back because of it. There were several moments like when the giants are killing people, but they had to snap the camera away like at the last second right before they kill them, and honestly, it loses its touch that way. Like it doesn't leave an effect. It doesn't make you feel anything when it just cuts away like that, and you just see people going like, "Oh no, he died," you know. And I'm not saying like, oh well, they're leaving it to your imagination. No, not really, because you still see what they do, but they cut away before the blood starts coming out, basically, and it's really distracting. And you know, it honestly, this movie would have benefited if the same people from Hansel and Gretel directed it, because like I could just imagine it like the giants just crushing people, all this blood just comes out, and you're like, holy crap! Like, Jesus, this is awesome! All these giants, and you know they're smashing stuff, and then when the giants die, like their heads just explode or something. You know, that would be cool. Why couldn't they have Gatling guns in this? Oh no, they technically do. Yeah. Another thing that annoyed me is that they, throughout the movie, like, they built up that the giants are basically indestructible, right? Like, swords, when you stick them, that just seems kind of like a sting. Like, they don't really react to it. But they're taken down by arrows. I'm not saying, like, one is taken down by arrows. Many of them are taken down by arrows. They have an arrow machine gun on hand. And for a movie that like seem to be basing it on like, well, what if this actually happened in medieval times? They have an arrow machine gun. And that's the only thing that's actually out of place, and I'm wondering why they even have that. You know? That's the thing, like, it seems like they wanted to be Hansel and Gretel, but they didn't have the balls to go all the way with it. Like, and actually, you know, actually kill... What am I saying? They just didn't seem to have the gonads to actually go all the way with it, to actually show those gruesome murders and stuff, to actually have, like, Jack at one point, like, wielding an Uzi or something. You know, it makes no sense, but it's freaking hilarious. But no, this movie seems to be taking itself too seriously, you know, that's kind of the thing I was worrying about. It's sad. Well, one last thing, the size of the giants. This was something that was really distracting. They seem to change size throughout the movie. I'm not sure this was purposeful, but alright, at one point they could pick up a sheep in one hand, and you know, like it looked like this, like as if they're holding like something pretty small, right? They could pick up a sheep like that. Um, at one point they have this person's crown, like they have the crown of the king, and it fits over two of their fingers. And it's not that big a crown. At one point they could fit underneath this arch that's maybe a little bigger than this room. Like they could just walk under, they didn't have to duck. And at one point a sack about about the size of my fist here looked like a grain of sand in their hand. Like, it seemed like their size changed depending on what the movie people felt fitted best for that scene. And it was really distracting. Like, it's noticeable that they didn't have a clear-cut idea of how big these giants were. So yeah. I'm still glad it's March. I'm still glad there's actually movies coming out now. So, oh, wait. Wow, what week is it? Oh, it is. Okay. So, wow, I just realized next week, Oz the Great and Powerful is out. That means you're going to get the rant. Prepare yourselves, everyone, and tune in next time. Until then, I am Glenn Dyer, and you have been watching A Dire Situation.